All right, everyone, welcome back. This is a course about music production, and now we're going to talk about EQ. What is EQ? Let us have a look. Here it is. This plugin is called Channel EQ. You have many other EQ possibilities, so you can open them if you'd like to. So what is EQ? I will open a new one to illustrate it better. EQ is just gain. It's a line. And I can lower that gain. You see, it says gain over here. We'll make it bigger so you can see it better. Oh, let's see if we can actually enlarge it a bit more. Okay. So it's a gain line. You can lower the gain of the instrument, or you can make the gain higher. So it's just volume. Okay, but there is more to it. You can actually change the volume of a certain frequency of that sound. Now, before you start lowering certain frequencies or making them higher, you should know what frequencies are. Let me clear that up for you. So if I sing na 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 na, I went from 220 hertz all the way down to 110 hertz. If I would go up na 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 all the way to the higher A, then I would have moved from 220 to 440 hertz. This A is 110, 220, 440. If you can go higher, you end up at 880. That's the other A. So it's an uneven scale. The difference between 10,000 and 20,000 hertz is exactly the same as the difference between 110 and 220 hertz. But the importance is, if you start EQing something, what are you actually doing? So let's have that harmonics chart first. If I sing na, an A, I'm not sure if it's exactly an A, but approximately, then I sing 220 hertz, but there are harmonics too. What are exactly harmonics? These are notes or frequencies sounding on top of that A, and you can't hear them because they're softer. So if I sing an A, on top of that A, there sounds another A, and then there's an E sounding on top of it, and then another A, and then a C sharp, and another E, and then a G. So everything that's sounding on top of it is forming a dominant chord, A7 chord. Does it stop there? No, it goes on and on and on and on. All the way to 20,000 hertz, you have harmonics sounding on top of that one A. You could wonder, like, okay, harmonics, is it important, harmonics? It is. Because if you take away the harmonics, I will do it for a moment. So the singer, the male singer you're going to hear, will be singing between 110 hertz and probably around here. He will not reach any lower notes, so we will cut him off too. That's the notes he's singing. When he has a page with the written melody on it, these notes are all within this frequency range. So if I turn on the vocal, will you then actually be hearing this vocal, these notes clearly? No, you will not. Let me give a demonstration. So this is the vocal.
We're tigers in a cage, fighting for space.
Do you hear that?
The earth is still spinning.
I turn the harmonics off.
Flow down, but not much is left.
The vocalist is not just singing the notes that are on the page. No, he's singing a lot more. He is singing a lot more notes. We call them harmonics on top of it, all the way until here, and they give the sound that makes they make the sound clear. Because without the harmonics, with just the fundamentals, so to say, the fundamental notes, it sounds as if the singer is singing behind a wall.
I am what I am. You are what you want.
All right. Let's have a look now. The male vocal, I will put it a bit like this. The male vocal is going to sing, I have to do it like this, between 110 and 440 max. The female vocal will sing between 220 and probably 880. I'm not talking about an opera singer, but just a pop singer. So these are the fundamental tones that person is singing. A kick drum goes all the way until 110, and that's it. And so it goes somewhere between 50 and 110. That's the kick. I mean, that's the fundamental tone of the kick. It might have also a lot of harmonic sounding on top of it, and it will give that kick its specific sound. It makes it a clear kick sound instead of a muted kick sound. With muted, I mean that it sounds as if it's played behind a wall. The same goes for the bass. Just the fundamental tones of a bass, they stop at 100 hertz. That's here. So the instruments is just over here. Why do I show you this chart? I show it to you so you have first a clear understanding of which instruments are in the same frequency zone, the fundamental tones. Look at that. The bass stops at 100 hertz and the male vocal starts at 110. This acoustic bass is not in the way of the vocal. So that's already good to know. The fundamental notes are not in the way. But have a look here. The guitar, the resonator guitar, the free strings of a guitar, nearly all overlap with that male voice. So the guitar, the fundamental tones of a guitar are in the way of a male vocal. But they're not in the way of a female vocal. That's why when a girl sings with a guitar, you can clearly hear the vocal of the girl and the guitar separated. And when a male sings, his vocal you might get some interference, might not pierce through very well because the guitar is avoiding that. Have a look here, the left hand of the piano. I'm just talking about if you have the central C and the left hand is put one octave at the left side and the right hand on the piano is put at the other side of the C. So one octave down, one octave up. A piano can go much lower and much higher, but that's not what this chart is showing you. So the left hand of the piano is quite a match with that male vocal. Do you see that? Most people don't realize when you play a bass line on the piano that you are actually playing right where the vocal is. If you would lower your left hand one more octave to the left, you would not be in the way of that male vocal. So when you accompany on a piano a male vocal, why not give him some space at the left side of the central C? So the first octave at the left side of the central C4, that's the central C, it's called C4. These numbers are just the octaves. The first octave on the piano at the left side is called 1, and then the second octave is 2, and so C4 is kind of the middle of the piano. And so the left hand is in the way of that vocal. The right hand a little bit too, so why not spread out use open positions when you play the piano, so you create some space for that vocal. But have a look here. The left hand of the piano is absolutely not in the way of the female vocal. So that's good to know, isn't it? And it's also when you start EQing, you should know which instruments are interfering with each other. Now, when you look videos about EQing, you might get confused. Why? Because when people say, I'm going to EQ the low of the vocal, they might mean just where the fundamentals are. That's considered the low part of the vocals. That's where the fundamental tone is. So if you EQ where the fundamental tones are, then you are EQing the low band, you are EQing the low part of the vocal. In fact, it's just where the notes are, where the notes are that you are singing. The mid, then we talk about the harmonics, and the high, we talk also about the harmonics. There are no fundamental tones anymore there. The confusion is here. When I say to you, why don't you take out some low on the male vocal? Now you have to be aware, do I mean the low of the fundamentals, or do I mean the low of the harmonics? So when we're talking just about harmonics and not about the fundamentals, we might say the low harmonics, the mid harmonics, and the high harmonics. And when you have that vocal, it's at the top here, then the low harmonics are between 1 and 2 K, the mids between 2 and 4 K, and the high harmonics between 5 and 10 K. So K stands for thousands. So you have to say 5,000 to 10,000 hertz or 5 to 10 K. Okay, so now you know that. So when we talk about low, you have to be aware, or when you listen to videos, what do they exactly mean? Are they talking about the low fundamental frequencies or about the low harmonic frequencies? Okay, let's have a look now. How do you actually EQ a song? The first thing you do is you EQ the vocal. As you can see, I'm reducing a bit of the fundamentals here. I'm going to make the mid harmonic frequencies go a bit up and the high harmonic frequencies. It gives more clarity. Let me play it for you.
I am what I am.
Let me turn it off.
You are what you want. We're tigers in a cage, fighting for space. The earth is still spinning. And
so I'm not sure if you can hear it, but it lifts the vocal a little bit up. And this avoids a bit the muddiness that you might hear in the vocal. So once you're satisfied and you think like, oh, I like the way it sounds open, clear, and at the same time warm, then you should ask yourself, what kind of song is this? In this case, it's a guitar song. How do I know it's a guitar song? Because the guitar is always playing. The song starts with the guitar on. All the other instruments come in later, like the piano comes in later, the bass comes in later, the drums are coming in later. I have some percussion going on at the start, but the drums are not there yet. So this is definitely the next most important instrument is the guitar. So what you should do now is solo your vocal and that guitar. You open the EQ of your guitar, and now you start EQing that guitar.
I am what I am. You are
let's like
and what I am.
So you should start EQing that guitar. As you can see, this and this, I had more bells on. I gave the guitar more clarity at first, but then I thought, it interferes with the vocal. Let's not do it. So the guitar is not sounding as bright as it can be, as big as it can be, as impressionant as it can be, because I adapted it to the vocal. I thought like, nope, I always have the impression the guitar is a bit too sharp in comparison to the vocal. So I turned it down a little bit. So it's kind of flat. There's not much EQing going on here. Then you ask yourself, what's the next most important instrument? Is it the drums? Is it the bass? Is it the piano? In this case, I'm not so sure. It's not the piano, because when I turn on the piano, the song doesn't sound very nice suddenly. Just the guitar and the piano together.
And what I am.
I do it here. Huh?
Not much is left of our childhood dreams. If we claw our way.
Do you hear that? It sounds messy. So the piano is not, after the guitar, the most important instrument. So let's turn on the bass for a moment. Let's see.
And what I am.
Oh, there is.
Tigers in a cage, fighting for space. The earth is still spinning.
This goes well together. So I might EQ now the bass, but let's listen to the drums first.
And what I childhood dreams. If we claw our way out, there's no turning around.
I like the bass better. So if I would have to perform the song with just two instruments, I would choose the guitar and I would choose the bass. So I will EQ the bass, and as you can see, I took a bit away here. So that's where the fundamental frequencies are of the male voice. You remember the male voice was between 110 and max 440. The vocal is not going that high. It's only going here around 300, I think. So I take away some of the harmonics of the bass, because these are already harmonics. The bass is only sounding up to 100 for the free strings. Of course, the bass can go higher. So I'm boosting some of the frequencies of the fundamental frequencies of the bass, because it's a blues song, it's bass driven. And you can see I take away here, this would be what we call the lows of the harmonics. So I take a bit away there, and then it stays quiet.
And what I am.
Oh yeah, I shouldn't talk about it yet. So let's forget what I just said about this part, because you see it moving. You saw it moving.
And what I am, you are what you are.
Okay, maybe it's time to talk about it. What is this? You see that one of these bands.
And what I am, you are what you are. We're dragons in a den.
So first of all, when you EQ a song, you start with the vocals, then the main instrument, in this case the guitar, then I would normally EQ the bass, and you do it in that order. So you build the instruments around the vocal, and you do it in the order of importance. So what is this then? That frequency on this third bell, it's called a bell. 1, 2, 3, 4. You have 4 bells, and you can see one of these bells is going up and down. Have a look here. You can actually see it moving here on this line too.
And what I am,
I'll open it again.
you are what you are. We're dragons in a den, getting along. Fire in our breath, wings build to fly. We are to be feared.
All right. Let's talk now about this dip frequency. Why create a dip frequency? The reason is I want the vocal to be the first instrument you listen to. So when I turn on this chorus, or I'll take this chorus.
Yeah, what I am, you are what you are.
Your attention goes to the male vocal. Why is that? Because the guitar and the piano have some side compression on it. That means, I have them here, I think. I talked about this in the video, in the compression video, the first video of this course. So every time the piano plays or the guitar is playing, some of that volume of the piano is reduced. And some of the guitar volume is reduced. So the piano and the guitar come together, and then I reduce the volume every time the singer sings. So it's side chained to the vocal. Bus 177 is the vocal. It's the dry compressed sound of the vocal, in fact. So every time that dry compressed vocal produces sound, the guitar and the piano, the volume is reduced by about 3 dB. But that's quite aggressive. It's a very aggressive move to make an instrument to use side compression. Why is it aggressive? Let me show you. It's as if I'm doing this. So there's 3 dB, isn't it? It's as if I'm doing this. Every time the vocal sings, I lower the total gain of the guitar and the piano, and I bring it back up to 0. So he's singing, he stops. He's singing, he stops. He's singing, he stops. So I was thinking, like, why would I take out all the frequencies of the guitar by 3 dB and by 3 dB and by 3 dB, and I do the same with the piano, if probably only a few frequencies are really in the way of the vocal. So I made a list with a ducking chart. So the drums, this frequency at 3000 hertz or 3K might interfere with my male vocal. The acoustic bass, this frequency around 75 might interfere, or 2004 might interfere with my male vocal. Piano too. Might depend a bit on the instrumentation and the genre, so you should recreate this chart every time for every song. But in essence, you can say that a male vocal would pierce through the mix better if those frequencies would be diminished by a few dB every time the vocal sings. So what did I do? You can turn on here, you can go to EQ. This is the EQ. Look at that, there are 2 EQs. This one I'm going to delete because it was just there for demonstration. So you can go there to the EQ, and then you can choose gain of peak 3. That's the bell 3, the gain. So I am, every time I have this line, and every time, let me do it again. That's maybe more fun. Let's see which frequency of the guitar is taken down. So it's 1310, and the Q is 120. So let me do it again, so you can have a clear idea on how to do it. So I have a new IQ now, isn't it? EQ. I go here. I go to the second EQ. I go to peak 3. Bam. There it is. My line appears. I will open this again. Do it like this. And I will put bell 3, because it's bell 3, on 1310. And this is the Q. Look at it. It was on 120, wasn't it? The Q determines how large you make that bell, that dip. So, okay, I'll put it back on 0. And now I'm going to write it. How do you do this? You put this on touch. You press play. And now I'm going to write it. So what I'm doing now is I'm lowering it and bring it back up. I'm lowering it, bring it back up. 1.5 dB approximately. I bring it up. Bring it down, I bring it up. Bring it down, I bring it down. I'm doing this with my mouse on the trackpad with my finger, in fact.
To shed our skin, aren't we all butterflies?
So what you see now is that everything I did is drawn on this line. The volume of this frequency goes down and goes up, goes down and goes up. And if I play it again,
What I am, you are what
and I arrive here, look what happens. You see? It's moving.
In a temple. Silence is our blood. No fighting, just karma.
So you put it back on read and you're done. This is saved. Now you might wonder, like, do I have to do this for all the instruments then? Right, the whole time with my finger up and down. No, you do it once for one instrument, and then on my MacBook it's Command C. I copy this line. I just have to know where it was. Let's have a look. So the channel EQ was on position 3. That's important. It only copies it if the next channel EQ is also on position 3. So I go to my piano. I place the next EQ on position 3. I think it's on position 3. Let's see. Yep, it is. And if I now paste, do Command V on my MacBook, when I paste it, then I have already succeeded by bringing that same dip, that same bell dip to the piano.
What I am, you are what you are.
There it goes.
We're Buddhists in a temple.
But first I have to check on my ducking chart which frequency I'm going to duck on the piano. Acoustic piano, about 3000 hertz or 3K. And what is a good Q? 1.4, and I'm going 1.4 is a good dip. So let's see. Okay, 1.4 is the Q, so the scope of the dip. Okay, and now I have adapted this.
Silence is our blood. No fighting, just karma. Floating around, we all shift forms.
I did it on the wrong one.
It's our turn
So it should be the third bell,
to shed our
3000, and the bell should be 140.
Searching for nirvana.
Let's see. Now it should be set. There it is. You see?
No fighting, just karma. Floating around, we all shift forms. It's our turn now.
So that's how you do it. You copy that line to a new channel EQ and you adapt the frequency according to the piano needs that dip around 3K. The drums, the group drums might need it also around 3K, so that's easy. But you have to adapt the frequency. So the previous frequency for the guitar was around 1300. For the guitar, it's around 3000. So you have to move it. So that's what you can use EQ for. You can dip a frequency on every instrument, a different frequency that's in the way of your vocal, or prevents your vocal from piercing through as much as it would like to. as is needed to make you listen to the vocal first when I turn on the song. Is EQ also used for other things than just making the instruments build a good curve? So I dip some frequencies or I make them higher depending on what the vocal needs. You build it around the vocal. That's the first thing. Second thing is you can use it as the same to replace or to help side compression, to dip frequencies that are in the way of the vocal instead of just dipping all the frequencies. As side compression dips all the frequencies of the guitar and the piano, and this EQ helps to just dip one frequency that's in the way or might be in the way. What else do we use EQ for? Primarily for preventing, for example, reverb. When you look at the reverb of the piano, you can see it's a low cut and there is a high cut, and there is even a dip in the reverb that I've made. So the fundamentals around the fundamental harmonics of that vocal would not be clouded by the reverb. So also in your reverb, you EQ around the vocal. You want the vocal not to be clouded by the reverb. So you make a little dip around 1500 hertz. And you don't want the reverb to cloud the mix too. So that's why you do this low cut and this high cut. You do it for all the delays too. All the delays will have a certain cut and a dip. So they would not cloud the mix. And this is so they would not cloud the vocal. And so the dip is to prevent clouding the vocal, and this is for preventing clouding the mix too much with unnecessary frequencies. Let's say something about EQing. I will have a separate video on the master, but I want to show you something. So Ozone 10 compared a lot of jazz songs, and you can see when I made Ozone listen to my song, it suggested to lift a little bit the frequencies here, and it suggested to lift a little bit the extreme low frequencies over here. Probably it did this because I cut them off, so they are not there at all. But if I change the genre, if I tell Ozone, but it's not jazz, this is a pop song, then Ozone will compare my song to a few thousand pop songs, and it will tell me that I have to lower the EQ line here to make it sound more poppy. If I say like, oh no, it's not jazz, it's rock, you will see it creates even a bigger difference. It lowers even a lot of frequencies over here, and it makes a lot of frequencies over here much higher. So you can see that rock has a lot more high end and less frequencies over here. Probably because rock, we want it to sound aggressive, and with more high frequencies in it, it sounds more aggressive. That's why. So Ozone compared all these rock songs and tells me now what I should change. Of course, I use this just as a reference. Imagine this is a rock song, and Ozone tells me on the master my EQ line should be adapted to this. I will go back to my own EQ. I will go back to the EQ here, and I will change it. If they need more high on the master, I will create this more high myself. I want it to look the way it looked. So I made a jazz song. I will close it for a moment. I will open it again because I don't want... Okay, so let's go back to the master. So I mixed the jazz song. I EQ'd the jazz song, and Ozone told me that my EQing was close to perfect. If Ozone would have said, no, it should look like this, then I would have gone back to the pre-master of every instrument, and I would have adapted the EQ line of the drums, of the bass, of the guitar, and the piano, and the vocal. Not in that order. I would have started with the vocal, then the guitar in this case, then the bass, and so on. So that in the end, when I ask Ozone to look at it again, it would tell me it's perfect. So it gives you a nice reference, but it also gives you a clear idea that EQing depends on the genre of the song. So you build it around the vocal, but also you make it genre dependent. All right, I think that's enough.